kind of a intro kind of lecture to hormone replacement. I'm an OBGYN, and I started out in what is now functional medicine, or whatever you want to call it. I really started out by beginning to understand hormones. Now, I went to Emory Medical School and did a residency. I was chief resident in OBGYN. But I'm going to tell you, I didn't understand hormones until I had practiced about 10 or 12 years. Because, and you guys have heard me, I may have it in here, but this is about a 3 or 4 hour lecture that I'm going to do in an hour. And so I'm just going to give you the high points. But I didn't understand hormones, and I didn't have a real incentive to really understand hormones until my wife started having hormone issues. And then I had a real incentive. I didn't care about learning about hormones when I was seeing patients for 15 minutes, because you give them birth control pills, antidepressants, and you move on to the next patient, and you didn't have to live with those patients. When I had to live with a person who had hormone problems, then deep study was very necessary for me. So I went into deep, deep study, and I found some incredible things. And some of that deep study did not include this book initially, because this is the book that I was supposed to have learned GYN endocrinology from. It's from Spiroff. And again, people who have heard me speak know about this or whatever. But this is the textbook of endocrinology, and so of GYN endocrinology. So anyway, when I learned this stuff, I said, wow, man, it's going to be tough for me to practice this if I don't have some type of scientific basis. So I went back to the textbook, and I was surprised at what I found out in this textbook, that it really did support these new things that I had learned, and really didn't support what I had learned in medical school and in my residency. So here are the take-home points. So I told you this is a 4-hour lecture. I could talk about this for a whole day, this one lecture, but I shortened it to an hour. These are the take-home points. And I'm going to talk about estrogen and progesterone, but how many have heard the news on testosterone and FDA, and y'all heard that stuff? Yeah, that's everybody's surprised. The FDA is going to limit testosterone and all this stuff, but this is what I want to say. If you practice hormone replacement by the book, you would have already known that that was the outcome. I've said for the whole 12, 15 years that I've been lecturing, is that if we don't do it right, we're going to come under the same scrutiny as the pharmaceutical industry trying to push Premarin on everybody. If you do bioidentical hormone replacement wrong, you're going to have wrong results. If you don't monitor it appropriately, you're going to let it get out of control, and you won't know it because you haven't monitored it appropriately. Testosterone in and of itself is not bad, okay? No hormone is bad in and of itself. Insulin is not bad, but if you take too much of it, your blood sugar will go to 0, and you will what? You will die, okay? Estrogen is not bad, but if you do too much, it'll promote too much growth. Testosterone is not bad, but if you take too much of it, things will happen. And so you have to monitor it correctly. So anyway, progesterone slows growth and increases cell differentiation. This is, the only thing I have in red is action. The action of the hormones must be measured and balanced appropriately. The action of the hormone is different than the serum level of the hormone. The action of the hormone is different than the level of the hormone. You have to measure the hormone where the action takes place. And we're going to show all of this in Spiroff. We'll have it referenced. The specific hormone must activate the specific receptor to achieve the ultimate biological response. I'm sorry, let me go back one. Most hormone-related symptoms are a balance problem, not an estrogen deficiency problem. And because I'm an OBGYN, I talk about women, but you can take these basic principles and you can apply it to any hormone. Menopausal symptoms are not exclusively due to estrogen deficiency. All right, hormone replacement by the book. Now, this is Dr. Spiroff. This is the guy who wrote that book. And back in, 2006, he said, we've got to move forward with this hormone replacement therapy stuff. We hadn't gotten stuck with the Women's Health Initiative. It's kind of thrown us off base. We got to keep going. And so what he says is, I tell clinicians that until we have definitive randomized trial data, which we may never have, whatever the patient wants to do is the correct decision. Now, if you are a physician, you don't want to leave everything up to the patient. We had these men come in and said, I want to have the testosterone of a 25-year-old. And according to Spiro, whatever the patient wants to do is the correct decision. So men took testosterone and got to the level they were when they were 25. And was that the correct decision? It's what the patient wanted. But that seems like not to be the correct decision. So if you are a physician and you are trying to promote health, you ought to have some idea of what the correct decision should be and not just what the patient wants. And I'm not talking about anything in particular, but, my wife always laughs when she sees these, and we got mostly women in here. You guys kind of, when you see these men who have obviously been on a lot of testosterone, and this woman is smiling when he's talking about how strong his libido is. And my wife always, she's like, yeah, like they're really that happy. Like the woman is really that happy. Anyway, but it gets men wanting to make that decision. But it's not necessarily the right decision. Okay? Learning is remembering. All we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some stuff you already know. And all I want you to do is to have the courage to do the things that you already know, because you've already learned this stuff. Okay, so don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. Now, I'm going to apologize here. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to make sure. Yeah. I am not. This is going to be a first. How many people have heard this lecture before? Okay. This is going to be a first. I want you to have something that you can say that you've never seen before. I am not. Yes, I am not going to do the caterpillar story. See, Dr. Rao, his mouth opened up. I wanted to have something that you could remember. I didn't want it to be boring for everybody. If you want to hear the caterpillar story, you have to come to one of my other things, where I just talk about this. But I'm not going to do the caterpillar story. So anyway, I have it on tape. You can hear it. You can and let somebody else tell you the caterpillar story. But I wanted this to be memorable for everybody. All right. So here's what we're going to talk about. If you're going to talk about doing something by the book, if we're going to talk about hormones by the book, then what we want to do is we want to understand the very core basic. The very core basic in women's hormones, and what makes women different from men, is the fact that women have menstrual cycles and men do not. So we need to understand that core difference, and then we can move on from there. So estrogen is dominant the first 2 weeks of the menstrual cycle, and estrogen stimulates growth. Progesterone should be dominant the second 2 weeks. Progesterone stimulates development and slows growth. All right, so estrogen makes things grow, and then progesterone makes things develop. All right, so here's how the menstrual cycle goes. I guess we don't have a pointer here. I'll have to bring a pointer. But anyway, what you see up top is the uterus, the tubes, and the ovaries. What you see right below that is the hormones. The red one is estrogen, and the blue one is progesterone. And you see mostly the red, the estrogen, at the first part. And at the bottom, it's a daily cycle, 28-day cycle, all right? So one is over here to the left, and then 28 days is over to the right. So what you'll see here is that as the dominant follicle is produced, on the way to that, you primarily make estrogen. After you ovulate, you make progesterone. If you see at the bottom, the endometrium is growing during the first half of the cycle, and during the second half of the cycle, it is developing. Now, the key here is growth without development will cause a chaotic situation. Growth without development will cause a chaotic situation. If the city grows and you don't develop some structure, you're going to get traffic and you're going to get, things disorganized. You're going to have a chaotic situation. So if you have estrogen, the growth hormone, without progesterone, the development hormone, you're going to have growth without development. Growth in a cellular context without differentiation is the definition of what? Uncontrolled, undifferentiated growth equals what? It equals cancer. This is a interaction here, so you feel free to say what you can answer questions. It is cancer, all right? So if we understand the basics, that uncontrolled, undifferentiated growth equals cancer, then we will know that if we stimulate the endometrium with estrogen without stimulating it with progesterone, that the logical conclusion will be cancer. Okay? And so when we were given unopposed Premarin to patients from 1942 till about 1970, till a study finally came out and said that unopposed estrogen increases cancer risk in the endometrium by 14 times, if we had understood the basics and had the courage to practice the basics, we never would have been given unopposed estrogen in the first place. But because you see TV commercials and ads trying to promote something, and we forget, we don't remember what we've already learned, then we end up screwing up things, okay? So it's just that simple. I have a lecture, Are Your Hormones Making You Sick?, that I give to lay people, and I tell them they need to be an honorary gynecologist. And the only thing they need to do is to understand that, is that growth without differentiation is going to lead to cancer. So don't